Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this session on supporters trusts. So if you want to talk about some aspect of arcane licensing, you're in the wrong place. Having spent some time this morning slagging off the panel session format, I'm now chairing exactly that. So I hope we'll be able to keep to time. For those of you who didn't pick up on the facts, my name is Robin Osterley. I'm the new Chief Exec of Supporters Direct. And let me introduce our esteemed panel. Because I'm new, I need to refer to the names. So to my left is Peter Davis, who's chairman of the Right. It's just chairman here. He's now doing all the work. He's vice chair of the Brakes Trust, which I believe is Leamington Spa. I've done my homework. And to his left is Barney Rozelle from Charlton Athletic Supporters Trust, chairman. Is that correct? Yeah. And to his left is David Matthew Jones, who's chair of Cambridge Fans United. And I'm sure known to many of you is the lady on my right, Kat Law, who is secretary of the Spurs Supporters Trust. So we're going to do exactly that format that I decried so aggressively this morning. We're going to ask each speaker to speak for about 6 or 7 minutes, just to introduce what they've been up to in their trusts over the past few years, perhaps a little bit about the journey, about how they got there. I'm going to be fairly strict on timing because then I want to hear from you guys, I want to hear what your experiences are, and above all I want you to ask these experts questions, which hopefully they will answer, and not, as Kat said, go and dive in the loo as soon as a question comes up. So I'm going to start in true spreadsheet terms with in alphabetical order by first name. So that means Barney gets to start. Barney, over to you.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me? I'm suffering a bit of a summer cold, so I'm a bit dulcet, that's fine. Okay, you probably know a bit about the history of Charlton in terms of fan participation. We left the Valley many years ago, and fans got together with the owners and all sorts, and got back to the Valley. That was way back. We came back in around 92, which I think is just before my first Supporters Trust was born. Is that, am I right?
I think, I was testing my knowledge of history, but I think the first Supporters Trust was 92,
Yeah, okay, so maybe it's just after.
Unless that right in front of us, both.
Yes.
It's after. Okay. So that's the sort of background to fan participation in Charlton. And then quite a few years later, there was an attempt to form a trust. I didn't really get very far. Then about another 5 years ago from now, probably another trust attempt, which fell through. So a lot of people, some people supporters direct say to me, was it quite easy, or it seems that easy to do that sort of thing at Charlton because of your pedigree? And well, no, it isn't. This is the third attempt, which has now succeeded. But it wasn't easy. So what we did, we started off as you do, following the sort of Supporters Direct recipe book, how to make your own trust. A few little hiccups with that, just that timing, summer holidays, that sort of thing. Went through to nice happy recording to manage to launch on the anniversary, the 20th anniversary of the club coming back to the Valley, which was very nice for us, and put on an event which had both purposes. So we're quite a new trust. We've only been around for 2 years. We've got just over 1,000 members. What we decided to do initially was go out and actually talk to the fans in the street, because we wanted to make sure they wanted a trust in the first place. It wasn't just a little group of us that decided that we wanted to form one, but we really wanted to go out and gauge opinion and do a scientific survey, and that's exactly what we did. That was interesting because it actually enabled us to go and listen to fans, engage with them, give them our message, but also to hear what they had to say. And it turned out that we carried on doing this. We kind of looked around the trust movement, what other people have done, and took kind of the best ideas we thought were out there and used them. And so we did another survey. What we found was interesting was we came up with a sort of formula that around 50% of people were just not interested. But what it did mean was the other 50 were. We then went further than that to say, well, another 50%, and it all depends on your sample size of how many people you're talking to and how many people you can reach. But we worked out that about 10 to 20% would actually want to join. So that was great because we could then target that level for our membership. So I think we've still got a bit more potential. The great thing about surveys, of course, is that if people are interested, you've got their information, you can get back to them, you can put them on their mailing lists. You can also find out other research. I think we did a bit on safe standing. It's about 75% in favour of safe standing. You know, we started to get into areas that other people hadn't done a lot of. We really were actually getting into real sort of research. Yeah. So the next stage, really, I think we're on about 300, 400 members. We were very fortunate that we managed to build a relationship with some of the board at John. They managed to get us into the boardroom with the chief executive officer. We had a good chat. We came up with a scheme where we actually did a joint initiative with the club. We signed a joint agreement with the club about collaboration. They distributed 5,000 of our newsletters on magazine turned out, and then free for the programme service. I mean, that was pretty much the height of participation or sort of collaboration. But what it did for us, we had another survey, but a survey that the club could share, told them a lot more about the fans. We actually helped some of the supporters groups by pushing people onto them who were interested in groups by getting their postcodes. So then this then ratcheted up another level, so we're approaching sort of 700 or more. I forget the exact figures at the exact time. The point was we managed to get out there and get the message out to enough of the fans, because we knew, or we thought we knew, from the scientific approach of the surveys, that there were that many people who were interested and that many people who would probably join. And then we went on to ACV. We went back to the cookbook. We had our ACV cooking away once more. A nice campaign to get your teeth into as a new trust. We happened to have a lot of rumours circulating at the time about a move to the peninsula, so it was very handy and very well timed in terms of building membership. But also the message was there. It was a real sort of example of what a trust is there for, and what a trust is supposed to do. So it really resonated amongst a lot of the fans. And then you could put that back to the history as well, and the value and stuff like that. So really, that's where we are today. We're doing other research. We do the match day experience survey as well with the club. We've got new owners now, so there's a kind of a bit of a reset going on. But we do a lot of stuff with the club, and that's, if you can do that, it will get you out there to that sort of the mass of the fans, because otherwise, half of them probably won't really know what the supporters trust is all about. It's not the fact that they're not going to join you, it's that they don't probably possibly know you exist or know exactly what you're about and what you do. So don't take that for granted. If you're setting a trust up, just try and get out there to as many people as possible. In person, there's no substitute, but obviously you've got limited numbers, limited volunteers. We ended up also with Stall. We're the only supporters group in Charlton, there's quite a few of them, that have any sort of match day presence. We're there, talking to fans, standing there, match in, match out. There you go.
Thank you very much. Thanks. I think we keep questions till the end, if that's all right. So let's go to Dave.
Hello. My name is Dave Matthew Jones. I'm with Cambridge Fans United. which were formed in 2000, and that was with the aim of helping the club and the supporters. Since then, that is still our aim. However, I think we've broadened it a little bit, and we see ourselves as looking after the past and maintaining the club's history. And with that, we've got an online museum and also a group of people now looking at the history of the football club. I think at the present time, we're looking to be the conscience of the football club. You have to all the time be asking questions, challenging, and you must never stop that, because if you miss something, you'll always regret it, because there's something going on somewhere quite often in a football club that you've got to be aware of. And I think also we have to look at the future, and for me, we have to get the club to a sustainable footing. I don't like asking supporters for football for money. However, the football club seems to constantly want us to be giving them money. I'd rather than just turn around and run it sustainably. And we actually ask money for positive things and things that may feed back to benefit supporters. But we'll get there eventually. During my time, since 2000, I took the club into administration with some others. So we've had experience of that. We've sold our ground. So we've had experience of that. We've done fundraising, supported the youth development of the club, and like I say, we fought a ground sale and we tried to buy the ground back. We've been asked several times to take over the football club, and whenever we get to the point of where we may be able to do so, we find that actually we can't, because we haven't got the finances. And it's not so much the backing, because I think the supporters of our club trust us, and they also believe in what we're doing. However, you know, to run a football club takes an awful lot of money, and if you're a non-league football club or a low-league football club, the finances just aren't there for you to do that at the moment. We have a director, a fans director, and he's there through right. At the beginning, it was we had to have a certain percentage of shares to enable that. We fought that, and he's now there on right, and we have a director. If you are having directors on boards or wanting to, I'd always look for two. One to offer the other one support, also because then you know what's going on, and eventually, because when they go in there, our club, they are told what they're allowed to do, what they're allowed to communicate. They had confidentiality agreements put on them, and what their liabilities are as a director. And I just, you know, that you need two. One isn't enough. I would always go for two. And we have two at the moment. The chairman of the football club is also on the trust board. Therefore, during the period, all the time, we're always being consulted, we're always being talked to. They may not listen to what we're saying, they might hate what we're saying, but they do they do ask us. The bad things that have come during our time, well, we are still treated with suspicion by people, and I think that's a real shame. They think of us as threatening their jobs, so we all want to get rid of them and bring in volunteers, and we're not there to do that. We just want the football club to survive and to be run sustainably. As a trust, to keep up with the finances of what the football club is always asking, you can't do it. So eventually you have to sort of say we can't do it, you know, until you put your house in order. And otherwise it just goes down a never-ending pit. The chairman, not the current chairman, but in the past chairman, have said, put in budgets in place, then said we can't afford them, give us some money to get us out of it. And you can't do it. You know, they've got themselves into this problem, get themselves out of it, or run it sustainably. And the saddest thing for me is, you know, a lot of what we did in the ground sales, the fundraising, administration was from the mid to late 2000s, and people have very short memories. And all of a sudden, somebody who saved for firefights last year has saved the football club, and it isn't, because we wouldn't be here today without supporters, and we wouldn't be here today without what we did in the mid-2000s when it was far harder. It wasn't about money, just money. It was about political, how people wanted to take over the football club. So, you know, it's something that we've got to make sure people remember. The good points, I think, we have the trust of the supporters and the local community. If we say something, they seem to listen, and they seem to trust us, because we don't just keep coming out all the time with everything. Now that we're back in the league, I think we had a huge part as a trust to play in that, because the club could have gone under at any time. The point of the ground sale and administration was to put the club out of business, I think, and to sell it for the land. And once we were gone, we were gone. And we've spent 10 years fighting that, and so we've all got battle scars. I believe we have supported other trusts, so, you know, if anybody ever wants to ring me and ask for advice over anything, I'm quite happy to pick up the phone at any time. You may not like what I say, or may not agree with it, but I'll always try and help you in anything. The future, I think for us as a football trust, a club football trust, to succeed, we have to have support from the football authorities, and, you know, supporters direct do a wonderful job. But I do think as trusts we are reaching that tipping point, and we've got to have that real push now. How many supporters will know what supporters direct actually do? It's probably about 5%, 10%. And we've got to make sure everybody knows that, for everybody to succeed. One doesn't succeed on its own. We all succeed together. We need to find a way to encourage more people at my trust to join us, because we've only got 350 members. They're all very good when things are going bad. They all trust us, they all like us, but get £20 out of them, you know, and they've got other things they want to do, and it's quite right, you know, it's their money, and if the club was run, like I say, sustainably over a long period of time, they wouldn't be needing to put that money in.
Okay, can I just ask very quickly, you say 300 members?
Yeah, 300.
What's the gate?
About 3,000. Last year was averaging 3,000, because we were doing well. When you're doing bad, the year before it went down to about 1,800, 2,000. I think it's a success, because I'll argue this with directors till I'm blue in the face. They'll say 2,000, you've only got 300 members. Take out of that 2,000, I know there's people living outside Cambridge, and they join us. Take out the people under 18, 16, under 18, couples, take them out, people who are over 60, people who ideologically will never agree with. And I think, you know, you're probably targeting, of the home mate, probably about 1,000 people on that. So I think we do pretty well. They'll argue that we don't do so well. But we'll argue.
All right. Can I wrap it up there?
Yes.
All right, brilliant. Thank you very much, Dave. Kat.
Hiya. Obviously, Tottenham Hotspur is a Premier League club, so that kind of gives a trust its own set of issues. We're never going to own Tottenham Hotspur, as much as we might like to. It's just not going to happen. So that whole supporter ownership model can't be a driving force for us. And we've been relatively successful on the pitch as well. And we found through our experience at Spurs especially, that if a team's doing well, there's kind of less traction, there's kind of less reason for fans to join what they might see the union or an activist with. So we're kind of in that position there. So my story, my journey is slightly different to the others here, would be where we are as a Premier League club. So if you bear with me, I'm not a fantastic orator like Brian, etc. So I've actually written mine down, so I'm just going to really do it. This was our AGM presentation from February, end of February, which kind of scaled and explained what we've done over the past year. So the trust was established in 2003, and at the end of February 2013, myself and a few others came onto the board. We basically inherited a trust that had lost control of its database completely. It had no way of communicating with any of its members. Membership had actually been closed since 2009. The first priority for us, therefore, was to build the infrastructure again. So we managed to persuade a website and a database specialist to come and give some hours for us for free, to obviously build a website and a database for us. We engaged a helpful graphic designer to produce some brand guidelines and draw a new logo for us and create a kind of visual identity. We used the platforms that were available to us to raise awareness of the trust. So they were mainly social media platforms because they're free, obviously, and easy to access and set up. So Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn. We set about meeting with various experts in their fields, so we try and glean as much information as we could from social media consultants and that kind of thing, just to try and boost our knowledge in those areas. We set about cleansing all the data that we inherited, our membership data, and trying to reconnect with our members, which wasn't an easy job. We started to run polls on key topics, so getting a survey monkey subscription was fairly top of the list. That helped us get a mandate and engage opinion as to what our fan base were looking for and the kind of issues that they were interested in pursuing. So that was kind of the first thing. That's how we revived the trust to make it work again. We then set about relaunching the trust to try and make it heard again. So we held a launch night for volunteers at the end of April 2013, and we had about 40 people attend, which might not sound like many, but it was a huge improvement on the AGM turnout 2 months previously. We rejoined the Supporters Direct and began attending symposiums and conferences in Birmingham and Staffordshire and London. Became an affiliate member of the Football Supporters Federation, and we started, this is key for me, started to build relationships with other trusts by recognising that there's real strength in numbers on national campaigns, and that football rivalries aside, most fans are campaigning on the same issues. So we've worked on coalition campaigns with the Spirit of Shankly, Liverpool Supporters Group, Arsenal, Manchester United, Chelsea, other Premier League trusts across mainly ticketing, allocation, safe standing, that kind of, those kind of issues. We were quickly recognised as a leading contributor rather than just a passenger. We built contacts within the regional, national and international press, across print, web, TV and radio, and slowly managed to position THST as the go-to group for comment on Tottenham Hotspur. So, we kind of, revived and relaunched. We now needed to reconnect the trust and make it relevant again. So, in order to drive membership and gain credibility and support from the Spurs fan base, it was important to major on the issues that were unique and specific to Tottenham Hotspur. Now, I don't know if I'll get the Spurs fans in here, but I'm going to just gloss over this because these are fairly Spurs-specific campaigns that won't be massively of interest to the rest of you. But there was an understanding we had to be completely transparent in our workings. So no meetings we went into were to be off record, and there was to be nothing secret scribble about the new trust at all. So some examples of the work that we undertook on Spurs-specific campaigns last year. Without doubt, the major one for us, we supported our fans in the Wildwood cases. We provided legal support, worked closely with the defence team. Basically, we were on conference calls every week with two barristers and the legal solicitor in the defence case. They were dropped on the 7th of March by the CBS, which was a big result for us. We ran a sustained campaign against StubHub, which is our second ticketing platform. Again, with some success. Changes now have been made to the platform on the back of the fan pressure that we applied to the club and to StubHub. We'll continue with that next season with the aim of convincing Tottenham not to renew their deal at the end of the coming campaign. We were keen to offer solutions as well as highlight the problems with the secondary ticketing market, so pushing for an ethical ticket exchange across the whole of the Premier League also. In addition to working on Spurs-specific campaigns, we also worked on national campaigns, so safe standing. So we ran a survey, we had over 2,200 respondents. We debriefed direct to the Tottenham Hotspur board, including Daniel Levy. We achieved support from Tottenham Hotspur to have the discussion about safe standing at Premier League level, and an agreement that they would incorporate a safe standing area in any new stadium they were to build, should legislation allow, which was a big win for us. We backed the FSF 2020 campaign, which is the £20 for all away tickets. We leafleted at Wigan in April 2013 and then at White Hart Lane for the Liverpool fixture in December 2013 also. So literally pounding the streets and handing leaflets out. We attended regional meetings on the Football Without Fans Is Nothing campaign. We were represented at that march on the Premier League last June, as well as being given a seat at the table with Richard Schoonmore to talk about fans' demands on the day itself. And that was so successful, the FSF are actually organising this year's march on the 14th of August. So if everyone can come along, that'd be awesome. So that was kind of that. Ticketing, obviously, a big issue. And for me, I think it kind of transcends league. I think it's an issue, whatever division you're in, to be honest. But if you're Cat A in a Premier League, club, you're paying through the nose anywhere you go, really. So ticketing is a big issue at Tottenham and most of the Premier League, to be honest. So we continued to press for cheaper tickets at Tottenham, with some good success, actually. We managed to get what we like to call the 20-10-5 pricing for the Europa League last season and for Southern Capital World Cup games. That's 20 quid for adults, £10 for over 65, and a £5 for kids anywhere we went, which is fairly accessible pricing, so that was good. We pushed for and achieved a freeze on season ticket pricing, and we pushed for and achieved a rise in concessions from under 16 to under 18. So that's kind of big wins in the ticketing area. We also met with the FA over allocation from the FA Cup earlier this month, and that was a meeting that I attended alongside Arsenal Supporter Trust, Chelsea Supporters Trust and Spirit of Shankly. We'll continue to try and build a dialogue with the FA to ensure that fans are always considered moving forward. That was basically on the back of not getting 15% in an away allocation last year. We achieved a Premier League rule change around away ticket allocation being issued on sale or return, and we're continuing to push for an end to match categorisation for away clubs. So as I earlier alluded to, we particularly think it's unfair that Spurs are Cat A everywhere and pay considerably more than other fans to watch our team away from home. So it can be £300 to £400 more than if you were at Palestine or Swansea Bank, following up and down the country. Yeah, I'm almost there. So the next thing we did was we had to represent our trust to the club. So we recognised that we needed to tread a fine line with Tottenham. We needed to talk to them and be heard, but we needed them to listen as well. So we made a decision at the start not to be an unpaid PR arm or a focus group for the club. We had to be able to speak out when was necessary. We've got a good relationship day-to-day level with our support liaison officer and our safety officer. Relations with the exec director are good. Relations with the rest of the board could be improved. We've had countless meetings over the past year. We've mediated fan complaints against the club, whether it's over bans or incidents with stewards, and we reinstated a police safety forum where we discuss all aspects of matchday policing and transport and all that kind of stuff. I think it's important that we have a mature two-way dialogue with the club. That's kind of our end goal. We want to be seen as a critical friend, so we can work with them on things that we agree with, but we can push back on things that we don't. One last little bit here, community. Obviously, every supporters trust has an obligation to help their local community as much as possible. So we've acted as consultants with a local club, the Antwerp Arms, to help the local residents fight closure. So we help them get an asset of community value on that. We continue to advise and assist with their goal of community ownership. We've also been vocal on the issue of the compulsory purchase order on the large remaining business that Tottenham to secure the land for their new stadium. So we'll continue to work with Harringay residents to make sure that is all kind of in the best interest of them. So looking ahead to next year, we've now got 2,000 members, 18,000 followers on Twitter, so obviously we need to do a conversion job there. We're launching a new website next week. It's all about really a membership drive for us and widening awareness and carrying on the work that we did last year. So we had 2 volunteers climb Snowdon for us a couple of weeks ago, and we had somebody auction a shirt off for us last night at a Legends night. So that's kind of where we're at.
Wow.
Can I breathe now?
Fantastic. So the message is sell your shirt and walk up to Snowdon. That's brilliant. Thanks, Kat. Okay, over to Peter.
Right, I'm going to have to kind of go in the history of Leamington Football Club because some of you probably don't even know it exists, so it's all relevant to what I'm looking to. The club were kind of formed-ish in the 1890s somewhere. It was a senior club in the town. Around about 1933-ish, something happened where the club was basically became Borg and Beck Leamington by the Borg and Beck Lockheed Company. That became Lockheed Borg and Beck FC, then Lockheed, and then AP Leamington, which we kind of hit our sort of pinnacle of success basically. Around like the early 80s, the ground was sort of reached our ground right in the town. That was sold off, and the club was mothballed in '88. So we actually had no club in the town from '88 to 2000. So someone like me, in my sort of formative footballing years, I had no football club support, and that's why it's a long story, but I ended up supporting Wimbledon, and that's another disaster. But in 2000, after even though the club was kept alive on a bit of paper with the Birmingham FA, it was actually relaunched, but outside of town, quite away out of town, and that's why that's kind of led on to what exists. There was a supporters club called the Friends of Leamington Football Club, and they were kind of a fundraiser. They were the main fundraising for the football club itself. So while the club started up at basically level 12 or 13, depending on how you look at history, and recently with Conference North and stuff, we started off without floodlights. First season we had to cram in about 20 games in 1 month because of the flooding that particular year in 2000. So we had to play all our games midday because we couldn't play at night, so it was quite ridiculous. But that was the level of football we played at. We finally got floodlights, etc., are now in Conference North, so we've done pretty well for ourselves. We don't have a benefactor, we don't have anyone putting money in. It's all fan or supporter or sponsorship related funding. We don't have any big names like that, so we are actually pretty well run. We might not be the richest club in the world, but we don't spend what we don't have. That's always been our ethos. There's no bank loans, there's no... we don't own any money, apart from I think one director put a couple of grand in to pay off the manager a few years ago. That's another story. The natural formation of the trust was because the club were using the supporters as kind of to run all the sort of like cash operations on a match day, and the club sort of took those over. There was no particular problem with that. That's just the way it was. Raffles, parties, that sort of thing. The club took them on as themselves. So we decided that we need to be a bit more official with supporters, and that's why we formed the trust. But one of the main reasons of forming the trust was to sort of link up the community, because you think we missed out on all those people growing up in that boom era of football. But then we were so far out of town that no one really saw the club, coming back and watching the club grow again. So we missed out on that. So that's one of our main aims of the trust. One of our big things that we've been doing for the last 4 years, when we formed in 2010, was a thing called Citizen of the Year event, which actually rewards and highlights people who work in the community. They don't have to be football related; it could be anything. Carers. We've had people win it who, a couple of years ago, an old lady who sits in town and shakes a money bucket at people. She's been doing it for like 20, 30 years. She won the award. It's just to highlight those people who never get that sort of thing. And it brings our name into the community. So, just a few little bits and pieces, I've got a whole list of them. We did a Save Our Shirt campaign, which was, someone gave us one of the original Leamington Town for the 1933 season shirts. It was still in pretty good condition. It's a Buckter shirt. And it's still tight as anything. It was covered in blood and all sorts. We had that framed, and that actually went to the museum in Leamington for the Olympic sort of celebration event. And all people in town saw it. It was a really good positive outcome for the football club. People to actually know it was something there. We had a little bit of fun and raised enough money to print off 20,000 beer mats. So our aim is to give one to each everyone in Leamington. We keep giving them out. This is several years later. We're still going. We gave some out recently. Virtually everyone in Leamington almost has a beer mat. We managed to buy a minibus. We don't have any money at all, so we didn't go and buy it. Someone actually found an old people's home at a low mileage, and they donated it to us for a very, very small fee of £250. So actually fan paid for that and gave it to us. So we actually run that to away games and to home games, because you cannot walk to Leamington Football Club from the town. You can, you probably die in the way. So you have to get a bus or drive to the ground. So having that minibus, we can go and pick up some of the people who maybe can't get their guys in. It's not a disabled bus, but guys on sticks, guys who can't get across town, we actually go physically and actually nick over there on the end, and it goes and picks them up. So and we run it to away games, we hire it out. It's all probably licensed for community use. A bunch of Cub Scouts used it today, didn't make too much of a mess of it, so we're quite happy with that. And that gets used for ladies, the ladies team as well uses that. We do things like, one of our aims was to get everyone to play a game on a pitch. We're doing that now. We had about 40 people take part end of last summer. The club don't like us playing on the pitch, but it's one of our bugbears and one of our insistences. It is a really nice award-winning pitch. End of the season we're allowed to use it. And that's a really good fundraiser. We charge them like 10, 15 quid to play. We got about 40 odd people last time, so we raised quite a lot of money. We're a member of the Warwickshire Carver, which is a community organisation, or a group of community organisations. We actually managed to get the scoreboard sponsored by a local company called Masquerade and an energy company a couple of years ago. Masquerade were famous for not getting on Dragon's Den with their cardboard masks, which you probably see all over the country in various things. We actually had a good relationship with them for 2 or 3 years. Our latest sort of shenanigans is that our ground is currently up for being, up for a Gypsy and Traveller site. So we could suddenly, with a flip of a government switch, not have a ground. As easy as that. We can't really we can oppose. We have actually put in an official objection to it after we've done all our research and everything. It's unlikely to happen, but it could. And basically what happened is that the council would have to find us an equal ground in town, that's another story entirely. There are possible plans for a new ground along the back side of a school, so that could happen. But it was an interesting procedure where we actually registered the ground as a community asset of asset community value, well, the club weren't too happy with us doing it, but we did it anyway, and then they decided they were going to do it anyway, but we already done it for them. So, the club is run again by volunteers, they haven't got a lot of staff. We don't try to undermine them by any such imagination, but occasionally we do get in the neck for doing things they're not really keen on. But we don't do anything naughty, so that's nothing to worry about. We've got about we're staying about 100 members. We had that in our first year, about 200, I think, maybe 150. So that's a good percentage. It seems we get around about 600 plus per game. That's a decent enough percentage. Because we've not come out of a disaster, like some like Charlton or other clubs, we don't really, there hasn't been that energy behind us. We just know that things could happen to a club of our size because we don't have any money. A sponsor could suddenly decide to take a large shareholding. We do buy shares whenever we can. Obviously, we can't afford that money, but we buy them whenever we have an opportunity. Something could happen like tomorrow. Someone could come in and offer the club a lot of money. Thankfully, due to that pressure we put on the club, they've actually stopped people owning more than 26% of the shares, which I'm hoping that was down to our pressure from day one. We don't know, but it's a good thing. The club has also become a technically a not-for-profit sort of organisation at the moment, so that sort of stops anyone coming in and making money, because we have to do that to get various licenses and stuff. But all in all, it's looking at the list of stuff we do, we've actually done more than I thought we had. We're only a small band, but we have actually achieved quite a lot. And you can do it if you have, really committed people. So just as you're a small club, I think we're the smallest one on here, but we do share the Southern League trophy we won 2 years ago with, I think, all you guys on here. So we're actually on the same trophy as Tottenham, Charlton, and Cambridge United. So we have achieved something big.
It says here in the preamble to the session, supporters trust come in different shapes and sizes. Well, I don't think it's about the individuals, but I mean, there couldn't be any stronger proof of that than what we just heard there. A variety of different sizes of organisations, sizes of clubs, doing all sorts of different things. And it just shows you that what we think of as a supporters trust is potentially a very diverse animal. Okay, we've got about 20 minutes or so before tea time. So I'd be happy to take comments and questions from the floor. If you've got any questions that you want to open with anyone, please do. Dan's got a roving mic there, and he's therefore got power. So over to you. Yes, please.
Hello. Yes. Hi. Lee Daly here from the 1895 Trust for Shelbourne fans in Dublin, which is Ireland. Just a question. We're I guess about coming up on 2 years now and plugging away with that. What we're finding is we're having a real sort of issue of sort of trying to get people involved and motivated. And I'm just wondering for you, what sort of strategies did you guys employ in terms of getting people involved and just getting them really energized around the Legal Trust, even when for different reasons compared to a club like Tottenham Hotspur, community ownership doesn't seem like it's a viable option at the moment. My question is just without that sort of clear objective, how do you sort of mobilise and get people to get on board?
Okay, we'd like to throw in some ideas. Yep, go for it.
You have to give them a reason, basically. It's kind of probably more relevant to us because we haven't had any sort of big disaster like to happen. I think if, say, this Gypsy Travel thing did happen suddenly, we'd get a lot of interest very, very quickly, and probably a lot of membership would start panicking. But I think you just have to kind of show them and win them over. We did a lot of hard work. When we do this in the year event, I fear for some of the guys that are doing so much work, especially those two over there on the end. You just have to keep proving yourself. You have to keep doing stuff. So sometimes you think no one's even listening to you or watching you, but you just have to keep going, keep trying to put things on, even if they're small or you do small things. Get yourself in the media, get yourself in the press. just keep plugging away. I mean, I'm sick of seeing myself in the paper. I hate looking at myself in the paper, but it does actually work. I mean, we did the Leamington Carnival, did like 6 community events over the summer. They were all freebies. We didn't spend much money. We raised a bit of money. We even took a float down the parade in town, and just had all our football club stuff on there. Had a bunch of the girls' team placing me on the back, and just made a lot of noise and colour. And just something as simple as that gets it right into the public focus. You know, I try and do the local events. You know, go and do the fairs and stuff. It really does, for a small club like us, gives massive exposure and lots of positivity.
Thank you. I think it was noticeable from Pat's presentation actually how much time she spent when she started over just getting the basics right, the infrastructure, the database, and all that kind of stuff. Having run a membership association for many years now, I know the easiest way to drive members away is to be inefficient with them and not get their email addresses right and send them information that they're not interested in and all that kind of stuff. I don't know if you want to make a comment about how that. Because it sounds like you grew the trust very substantially.
Yeah, it was an awful lot of work over the past 15, 16 months, really, to be actually honest with you. And I think you're absolutely right. If you can't communicate with your members, it's about putting the right messaging out through the right channels to the right people at the right time, and making sure it's relevant. So don't bombard the members that you do have with communications that aren't of interest to them, to be honest. To answer the gentleman's question about if you can't own your club, then what's your hook? I mean, for us it was about distinguishing and identifying who our really passionate fan base was, and you tend to find it's the youngsters. It's those that are kind of under 21 at the moment, maybe under 25 at a push, who want all the against modern football stuff, who want to be able to go to football matches, who want to be able to stand, who want to be able to sing, who want to be able to do all the things that they think that they're dads with. Whether or not that's true or not today. And they tend to be the ones that are willing to get out on the streets and hand out stuff for you and go to the marches and be the most vocal. And if you can channel that energy, then you've got a base at least to start from. And obviously we've used a lot of different social media channels which again hit that demographic quite nicely. Obviously you can't ignore your long-standing members or your older demographic as well, so you've got to work on stuff that's appealing and appropriate to them as well. A lot of it will depend on your own club circumstances, but it's really poll as much as you can, try and engage as much opinion as you can, have focus groups, have members meetings, and just really get under the skin as to what the majority of your members want. You'll never please all of the people all the time. It just isn't going to happen. And there are times when, yes, we're a democratically elected board, but we need to make decisions on stuff quickly. So we kind of do need to know what the general mood is. So that's it really. But yeah, you're right. Sorry, getting your infrastructure right is really important.
Okay. We'll have one more comment. I'll come to you. Yep.
Yeah, it's interesting what you're saying about polling and activity. I think when we're trying to get the thing airborne, the reason we started ours was because we wanted to. We just felt we were in the dark. We literally didn't know what was going on. We didn't appreciate the financial situation. We really wanted to build that awareness so that if there ever was a disaster, we could have some chance anyway of maybe being aware of it or maybe doing something about it at some stage. So, but anyway, going back to that, it's an intensity to get the thing airborne. We're hitting that at the moment really. Because after that sort of 2 years, you've really built the membership. Yes, you shouldn't then take it for granted, but you've also got to maybe settle down a little bit and try and sort of find an even keel where you're still doing research. We were quite lucky that we had a lot of people who were, or enough people who were financial, so we could do a bit of research on financial fair play, and the club have actually really appreciated it. So that's made us look good in their eyes, and that's true of the new administration as well. So yeah, definitely a different intensity, I think, after those couple of years. But keep doing the things that worked. And yeah, I'm really interested in thinking about the younger fans as well, because we're finding we're not reaching them as much as we'd like to be. So I might let you know maybe that.
I think supporters trust has moved on, and we look at the skill set on our board now, and I work in marketing for start, probably also. the other way, a bit of spin and stuff there. But you need a legal expert, you need a marketeer, you need all, as well as just your passionate supportive rights campaigns on the Sports Trust board now. It's such a diverse board.
Okay. Gentleman there, and actually, can I see a couple of other hands? Questions, thoughts? Yes, one there and one there. So we'll take all three of those and then we'll ask one. Okay, so you first, please.
Okay, I'm Niels from Holland, the first trust in Holland, Sir. A bit similar to what the Spurs do. Good club, well-run, financially, it's okay, it's all okay. So we have to take it from another level. The thing we struggle with, and the question we receive are, what is the difference between a supporters club and supporters trust? We say we're going to take it from another level, politically, that kind of stuff. But what's the goal in England? What's the difference with trusts and clubs, supporters clubs in England?
Okay.
We support 4 clubs, 4 supporters clubs, and we're above is our trust. But what's the difference between?
Okay, right, we'll hold that and we'll get that answered in a minute. Next.
Thank you. I'm Daniel from Colombia, South America. I'm not supporting any English team or supporters trust. I'm here for personal reasons and doing research on this. And I wanted to ask just a basic question. I'm sorry if it's too basic, but it's from general knowledge. Where do you see the future of the trusts? Individually speaking, for lower league teams, for Premier League teams, for the general framework, the governance, where is it heading? Because I'm really interested in to know that. Because I've seen the German example, the Swedish example. In South America, Latin America, we don't have anything like this. There's an opportunity there, of course. And I want to know, because it's interesting. I'm doing that research on fund ownership models.
Well, if you pay, I'll pop out to Bogota. Okay, that's...
I can pay.
And there? We'll cover it all.
Yeah, Peter Jones, Wrexham Supporters Trust. We're a trust who are very fortunate to be owners of our football club now, and there'll be many more trusts, to answer the gentleman's question, there'll be many more trusts who will be owning their clubs in the near future, I can assure you, because it's the only way forward as far as we're concerned. We took over our club, £750,000 in debt. We overcame a lot of obstacles to be where we are, and we're now sustainable, debt-free, and looking to move forward. That's one thing we need is a team on the pitch at the moment. Just going back to how we started, and we started as a supporters trust on a beer a week fund, and our aim was literally to buy shares in the football club and have a member on the football club board. That was our aim when we first started. We've grown from there. We discovered our ground had been sold. I don't want to get too much into that, but we became a protest group. We overcame. We actually went to the High Court to win back our stadium. We moved on from there. We tried to purchase the ground, so we became a purchasing group, and then we kind of became a protest group again when the new owners turned belly up on us. But it all led to us taking on the football club. We had a lot of people come in to try and take over the football club before we actually did take it on, and we were looking really, even at the early stage, we were looking at a 50-50 split to get as much into ownership in the football club as we could get. But then we realised the type of people that were coming in to take on our football club, they were just undesirables. None of them would have done the fit of a person test. We overcame that. We thought, right, a gentleman from supporters director, I'm sure most of you know, Tom Hall, did an absolutely brilliant job for us, as well as James has, and Jackie as well. But Tom actually said to us, he said, you guys, you've got the skill sets to take on this football club. He said, you can do it. He said, just believe in yourselves. And from that day, there's the one word that we stood by, and that was belief. And we did believe in ourselves, and we took on the football club, and we, like I said, I've already said how we've progressed from there. But just to everybody, have your aims and objectives, and believe in what you're trying to do. Don't ignore what other people say, the fans. The Charlton Jackman said there about winning over for fans, and you'll win them over. Just believe in what you're doing. Just keep doing it, and you'll get it right.
Thank you. Brilliant. Thanks, Peter. And I was lucky enough to be down. I was lucky enough to be down at Rex at the end of June, and I can confirm everything Peter says. It's a marvellous setup there. It's completely brilliant. So we've got two questions. We've got two questions outstanding on the table. One is, what is a supporters trust as against a supporters club? And the second is, what is the future for supporters trust? So, who'd like to take that on? David, so much. What's a supporters trust as against a club?
A supporters club, I think, is a more social thing, whereas a supporters trust, I think, is, from my point of view, is the conscience of the football club, and also has the aim of running that football club possibly in the long term, if it had to. I believe that a trust is about joining everybody within that club together, the supporters and the local community, to run a club that is democratic and for the supporters, and not just for an individual who has their own selfish want.
This question is about this topic, so can we just ask this question?
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm Paul Keith from the Leeds United Supporters Trust, or LUST. It's a question which is relevant to what we're actually discussing at the moment. Now, we as a trust, we've been around since about 2002. With the history of the club and such, the Leeds United Supporters Club has actually been around since I think it's around the 1950s. Now, we as a trust, we obviously wear the whippersnappers in the football supporters movement. Has any of the board or the panel or anybody in this room actually had any involvement with existing groups within their clubs that they have created a trust separate to a supporters club? Now, asking this question obviously is quite relevant to obviously what we're discussing at the moment.
Okay.
Because we're just from that point of view, we're having a lot of problems with people who are very long in the tooth, who say, why do we need a trust? You can't do half the things that we as a club do, when all that they do is organise transport for fans to away games.
Okay. All right. So let's just set the scene by saying that there, apart from the kind of motivational differences that David's described very well, in our terms, in supporters direct terms, the difference is that a supporters trust has to be a properly established democratic body. So it has to be run as a democratic institution. And that is the difference between a supporters trust and any other kind of supporters club. And generally speaking, it won't be a supporters trust unless it adheres to a set of rules that we have agreed with the Financial Conduct Authority for Community Benefit Society. So I don't want to get into massive amounts of technicalities, but in answer to the first gentleman's question, that is technically, in the UK, what a supporters trust is. Now, of course, the legal framework in the UK may well be very different from that in other European countries. So the sort of thing that we would call a supporters trust in the UK may not be possible, actually, in those technical terms in Europe. So we would have to be a different legal structure in most European countries. Okay, so that's the background. So the supplementary question, if you like, is: have we experience of moving clubs forward or sideways, whichever way I describe it, into a trust? Because there's obviously some interesting difficulties there, and I imagine we must have quite a few examples of that, do we not? And Jack is pointing down here in some direction here. So you've done that.
Yeah.
Dan, where's the mic? Yeah. Would you like to just say something about that?
Our supporters club, which was predominantly about raising funds on behalf of the club, stood alongside the trust, that the trust were a separate entity. Most people are good at managing membership, belong to both groups. The trust interest dwindled, had an older group of people, people stopped taking part, and they were collecting signatures to roll up the trust. When the supporters club learned this, we stepped in, amalgamated with the supporters trust and the Cameron group, and obviously there's a change of focus required. But yeah, it's all gone very well. We've done some good work down at the football ground. We've created a memorial garden, which you can see online. It's very impressive, and we're hoping at some stage to get representation on the board, which is very difficult at the moment because it's a single shareholder.
Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much for sharing that with us. Perhaps you two would like to hook up over tea. Now we're kind of out of time really, but I would like to get the Colombian gentleman's question answered, and obviously I don't think we're going to get the answer, but we'll get some views from each of the panel as a final thing on where you see Supporters Trust going in the future. And very briefly, if you wouldn't mind. So I think Peter, you had an idea for starters.
Well, sort of. I don't know, I'm kind of concerned about the future of Supporters Trust because I think as clubs progress, usually what happens is they're formed out of disaster or some kind of pressure. There's a massive swell of support, everyone's on board, it's fantastic. Give it 3 or 4 years, it kind of drops off a bit, people are kind of like comfortable with it. I mean, take Wimbledon for example, I mean, it's a case that, you know, when the trust was formed, there's loads and loads of members, and it just drops off. And now even on message boards, people are saying, don't you go there. Some fans are like, oh yeah, we should sell out and stuff. Now, I know it's not going to happen, but that's kind of been happening at Notts County, for example. They started to put the leagues, and they dropped down again, and then they sold out to some, you know, total, you know, fabricated lunatic who didn't actually exist, and they actually sold the trust out. So it's one of those things where, I mean, I'd love to keep going on and on, but I think it's down to the individual trusts themselves. I think they have to be. I mean, we formed without having the disaster behind us immediately. We had one a bit further back, but we were formed out of trying to link the community with the football club. So we don't have that. You know, we're not waiting for something to happen as such. We're just doing our stuff. So I'd be interested to see what some of you guys who've been there really.
Okay, let's come to Kat next.
Okay, so I think round about now there's an increased recognition that fans are stakeholders in football clubs. You've seen a couple of initiatives kick in, like the Away Fans Initiative, so the Premier League insisting that all their league clubs ring fence £200,000 to put towards encouraging fans to travel to away matches. So there's kind of a pendulum swinging at the moment where there's an awful lot of fan activism going on around football without fans is nothing, and just trying to explain how important it is that fans' voices are heard and are listened to at all levels of football. So there's a push for structured dialogue. There's the UEFA directive that every Premier League or every club in European competition has to employ their supporter liaison officer. We're kind of moving in a direction where I'm hoping that clubs are recognising the value of fan consultation and the importance of fan engagement. And there's a supporters trust because you are a democratically elected body and you are a representative of your fan base. They would be the kind of natural go-to group were this all to move forward. So there's some movement in Parliament at the moment around enforcing a supporter on each board of each club. I'd like